Okay, Rabbi Sai, let's continue with Bishul Akum. Okay, Amir Shem, once again, as I said last week, when we learn Torah, we have influence. We're the ones in the base medrash. We're an integral part to winning the war. This is the main place where the war is fought. Obviously, we need the tremendous efforts by all the soldiers and the combination of us learning in Torah being the engine and the soldiers fighting on the field will be able to overcome our enemies. Now that we're learning Bishul Akum, this power of the base medrash should go onto the battlefield, and the IDF and the Air Force should be zeichet mivashal the Akum of Hamas. We should be zeichet with our Bishul Akum to be mivashal that Akum. Okay, so one point that maybe should have been in last week, but let's throw it in. I didn't mention it. What if an item is normal to be oila al shulchan malachim? It's normal to be served at a fancy meal for dessert, but not for the main part of the meal. Is that considered oila al shulchan malachim? Does Bishul Akum apply? So according to the Chachmas Adam, that is oila al shulchan malachim. It's dessert, it's part of the meal. And therefore, Bishul Akum would apply, that food would be a problem. But according to the Chassam Sofer, no, it might be oila al shulchan malachim, but it's not oila al shulchan malachim, the lafis bayas to pass. It's not served together with bread. It's not part of the main part of the meal, and therefore that is not considered oila al shulchan malachim, and Bishul Akum would not apply. L'chayra, one should try to be machmer, especially by a fancy dessert. But yeah, there definitely is room to be mekel. Okay. Lemaisa, how much involvement does the Yid need for something to be called Bishus Yisroel? What does the Yid have to do? So by Pas Akum, everyone agreed that it was enough for the Yid to turn on the fire, the Yid to throw in a little twig. That would be enough. When it came to Pas Akum, everybody agreed. What about by Bishul Akum? Do the same rules apply? So according to the Ramah and the Ashkenazi Psak, which follows the Ramah B'Pashtus, that starting the fire suffices. If the Jew turns on the fire, those famous words, let the Yid turn on the fire. If the Jew turns on the fire, that is enough for it to be called Bishus Yisroel. And not only the Jew turning on the fire, but even if a Jew just throws in a twig into the fire, once again, not our current ovens, the old ovens, the brick ovens. If a Jew just flips in a little fuel, flips in a little twig, fans the fire, that is enough to be considered Bishul Yisroel. And that's how it was historically. Yidden used to come and flip twigs in the fire. And that worked to make it Bishul Yisroel. Now, the Mechaber holds that lighting the fire doesn't help. You need to put the food in the oven. So many of us are familiar with the Gezeres HaKasev, so to speak, that we heard learning up. No, don't let the cleaning lady turn on the fire. The Jew needs to turn on the fire. You need the Jew to turn the fire. Oh, the Jew turned on the fire. Everything's fine. Everything's okay. The guy, the cleaning lady, the chef, whoever it could be, will be able to do all the cooking because the guy turned on the fire. Does that work? So let's actually just think about what we just said. Lefi the Ramah, beautiful, it works. Because if the Jew turned on the fire, it's Bishul Yisroel. What about the Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch, the Sfardim? What do they say? They say that's not kosher. That's treif. That's Bishul Akum. Just like when you mix your chicken and milk together, it's awesome midarabanan to eat. So to this food, Zak the Mechaber, it's awesome midarabanan to eat the food that the Jew turned on the fire. The guy did all the cooking. You cannot invite over your Sephardi neighbor for that meal. It's a little bit shocking. I think people do not know this. I think a lot of Ashkenazim think that it is universally held of and it's universally accepted that you could have the Jew turn on the fire and the guy cook. But really it's not true. It's not universally accepted. For the Sephardim, that is not kosher. And this is a big problem. You can't invite that Sephardi neighbor over for the food if the guy put the food in the fire, in the oven. Now, this is also a huge problem for Sephardim when it comes to restaurants and when it comes to Sephardim coming to Ashkenazi yeshivas, because the mitzias is that the Ashkenazi institutions are not machmer for this, for the most part. And by the way, even for Ashkenazim, this is another shocker. Just, the flipping in the twig, is that really enough? According to the Ashkenazi Psak, even within the Ashkenazi Psak, the Chachmas Adam and the Aruch HaShulchan say it's only b'di'evid. Once again, we're makel with it. But they say it's only b'di'evid. So the Ramah seems to treat it as a din lechatchila, but the Chachmas Adam and the Aruch HaShulchan, which are a very big hitter psak in our world, say that it is b'di'evid to rely on just the Jew starting the fire and not putting in the food. But l'maisa, I think the minhag is for the Ashkenazim to rely on this. Rebbe Vadios, now how do Sephardim eat at restaurants? So Rebbe Vadia says a very sharp line, very geschmack line. He tries to bring a limit schus on all the Sephardi tourists that come to Eretz Yisrael and just eat out at these restaurants. Yes, how could the Sephardim eat out at these bad hechsherim that don't take care of the Sephardim, these bad hechsherim, like the Rabbanut and like the Eideh Charedis? He just equated the Rabbanut and the Eideh Charedis. How does Sephardim eat at these bad hechsherim like the Rabbanut and the Eideh Charedis that don't take care of the Sephardim? And he comes with the whole sveka. There's maybe one side is a potential heter called Bishus Yisroel, which we didn't really discuss, but l'maisa we don't really hold of. And there's another, l'maisa there is the psak of the Ramah. So if you combine them together, there's a sveka that maybe you could eat in the restaurants. Really, he doesn't like it, but it says dan l'chav schus on the Sephardi tourists. I happens to be apparently the Eideh Charedis switched to start being makbid to take care of the Sephardim after they got this bashing from Rav Vadia. So I guess Rav Vadia's bashing worked. Now, Rav Sternbach has Ramesh Sternbach Shlita. He has a very geschmack of heart. He says that a Sephardi bacher could eat in his Ashkenazi yeshiva because when he becomes a member of the Ashkenazi yeshiva, he's part of the mishpacha of the Ashkenazi yeshiva, and he's mekabel their minhagim klapi these ideas because he's eating on their shulchan. He's one of them, and he's at their table. He's mekabel their minhagim for as long as he's in yeshiva, and therefore he could eat the food. But l'maisa, it's a big problem. And the big kashrus organizations, the OU, the Starcade, they're not being machmer for the mechaber. And by the way, you got to understand, this is very, very difficult. Getting the fire on is one thing, but actually getting the food into the ovens, that is much, much more complicated to arrange that it's done by a yid. So how in the world could Sephardim eat OU and Starcade? Good kasha. Tzarech gadol. I heard this sprach that goes something like this, that, since such a shasat chak, the Sephardim have no choice, so the Sephardim have to be samech on the Ramah. I didn't see that written anywhere, but I've heard that sprach on the street. I imagine somebody does say it. I understand it, but it doesn't seem like Rav Vadia is going that way. Tzarech gadol. Okay. Now, l'maisa, how much cooking does the Jew need to do? So the Shulchan Aruch says it needs to reach the mechaber. It needs to reach k'meichel ben drusai, meaning that let's say the Jew started the cooking, and then the food went off the fire somehow, and then the goy put it back on the fire before it reaches meichel ben drusai, a third of the cooking. Then it is no good. You need the Jew's cooking to take it to at least more than a third. So, for example, let's say the Jew plugged in the chalent, and then let's say and when you explain Meichel ben Drusai the simplest way, it's not everybody agrees to this point, but it is the simplest way. So that's what I'm going to work with for now. We judge by a third of the cooking time. So let's say a chalent takes 12 hours to cook. So we have a Jew goes and puts up the chalent. And then 2 hours later, the Goyish Filipino aide takes the chalent, unplugs it, and then replugs it in somewhere else, a different part of the house, let's say. So, and now it goes and cooks for the next 10 hours. Is the Sephardi allowed to eat that chalent? And the answer is no, Because when the Jew cooked it, it only went for 2 hours. It didn't get to Michael ben Drusai. It didn't get a third the way cooked. It was only 2 out of 12 hours. And therefore, that cholent is no good. Now, what if the other way around? If the Jew starts it, if the guy starts it, could the Jew save it? So similarly, if the guy started it and he did, he plugged in the cholent pot and it went for 2 hours, and the Jew says, "Oh no, the guy plugged it in," and the Jew unplugs it and replugs it, so then it is okay because the Jew saved it. It didn't get to Michael ben Drusai. But if it went to Michael ben Drusai, and then the Jew unplugs it, and the Jew replugs it back in, for the Sephardim, that will be a problem. For the Ashkenazim, as long as the Jew is involved at all, it is going to be fine. It is going to be okay. By the way, just one thing I just want to point out from earlier, which I think I might not have been clear. It is a bigger maisa by the Jew to put the food in the oven than to turn on the fire. So, if you have a choice of the Jew turning on the fire or the Jew putting it in the oven, it's more important for the Jew to put it in the oven. We generally make it as a loy plug that goyim shouldn't turn on ovens to avoid problems. And I'm not saying that's not a good practice. It might be a good practice, but don't stop there. Put the food in the oven if you could. Okay, so back to here. If the Jew did partial cooking that brought it to Michael ben Drusai, then it's good for the Sephardim. If it didn't get to Michael ben Drusai, so then it does not count for the Sephardim, but it would count for the Ashkenazim. Now, however, the mechaber is mekel for the Sephardim when it's Erev Shabbos, that even if the guy did it to Michael ben Drusai and the Jew took over to finish it off for Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif or for Hefsem Meruba, even the mechaber is mekel. Now, the Shevet, what about how much involvement for the Ashkenazim do you need? So the Shevet Levi says, even if you take it from fully cooked to mistamek v'yofaloi, which means that right now, before the Jew got involved, it was completely cooked. You would have served it that way. However, by cooking longer, it does get better. Then as the Jew was able to get it in there to get better, the Jew could save it. Now, let's just take a story. This happens. Okay. Oh no, I forgot to plug in the crock pot. I forgot to plug in the cholent before Shabbos. It's Beit HaShmashos. Quickly, go get the guy to plug it in, because we all know that during Beit HaShmashos, you can get the guy to do almost anything. As long as it's a tzarech, you're allowed to have a guy go and plug something in. It's not a problem. So let's have the guy plug it in. And then we realize, oh, wait a second. So the guy goes, you run, you get the guy plugs in the cholent while it's still Beit HaShmashos. Gishmak, no problems of Shabbos. We're going to have a cholent. It's great. And then we go, wait a second. Who's cooking this cholent? This cholent is cooked by the guy. Yeah, I may not have a Shabbos issue, but I have an issue of Bishul Akum. What am I going to do? What can I do? How can I save this cholent? If I can't cook it now, because that'll be Bishul b'Shabbos. But if I don't cook it, it's going to be Bishul Akum. L'chayra, there's no eitzah. Zakt the Shevet Levi, there's a Gavaldik eitzah. Shabbos morning, you go, and you look at the cholent, it's fully cooked. It's completely cooked. When it's completely cooked, you're allowed to pick it up and do chazorah. Put it back down. So pick it up on Shabbos morning. Don't eat any. Don't take any out. Put it back down and do chazorah. And now it's going to be mistamek v'yafalei. It's going to continue cooking. Cholent's going to get better when it cooks longer. So, in terms of Shabbos, you're not over Bishul because it's fully cooked. But in terms of Bishul Akum, since it was mistamek v'yafalei, it got better from fully cooked to even better via the Jew. Memela, it's ganz fine and it works. It's a gavaldik chap. You're able to do it in a way which klape Bishul Akum, it's considered Bishul Yisroel. Klape Shabbos, you didn't do Bishul, you just did Chazar Beheter, and Memela, your cholent will be fine. geschmack. But one thing you should remember at your Suda, when you're enjoying your cholent, you got to tell your Sephardi guest, you're not allowed to have any. You could eat the rice. Sorry. So remember to tell that to your Sephardi guest. And that's really what comes out. I heard a different geschmack Eitzah was, what's his name again? I forgot his name. Big Paisik in Toronto, Rav Miller, that's his name. That he said like this: during Beis Shemashos, what you do is you tell, if let's say the cholent pot's not plugged in, you tell the guy to go unplug the electricity, go to the breaker, shut off the electricity, wait there for a minute. You go and, with your elbows, your mouth, or something like that, you plug in the crock pot. Once again, there's no electricity in the house, so there's not a problem that you're plugging in the crock pot. The only problem is muksa, but you avoid that by doing it with your mouth, your elbows, whatever. You get it plugged in, and then you ask the guy if he could put the electricity back up. Once again, it's still been a shmoshes. And now when the guy puts the electricity back up, it's going to turn all the electricity on, and maybe you're good. But wait a second. Isn't the guy cooking? The guy's turning on the electricity, the guy's cooking. So I'll tell you another point, and we're going to answer both of these with the same point. Let's say the electricity goes out, before the food gets to Michael Ben Drusai, or maybe before it started cooking within the Ashkenazim. And then the guy who works for the electric company goes and turns the electricity on for the whole town. Now, who turned on the electricity? Who's cooking it? The guy. Isn't it a problem? Isn't it Bishul Akum when the guy turns on the electricity, whether it's the house or the town, whatever it is, it's going to be a problem with Bishul Akum. So no, because we see in Sif Hey, the Shulchan Aruch brings down, that let's say the guy burnt down the Agam, the swamp. I don't know why exactly the guy was burning down the swamp, but let's say the guy burnt down the swamp. And you know what happens when the guy burns down the swamp? Even though it's not his kavana, he makes some yummy, geschmack, toasted grasshoppers. And a Jew is allowed to eat those yummy, geschmack, toasted grasshoppers if you have a Kabbalah as to what's kosher. And therefore, but what do you mean? It's Bishul Akum. The guy made the fire to burn down the swamp. No, when the guy is cooking wasn't with kavana, it's not considered Bishul Akum. So when the guy for the electric company turns on the electricity and causes the cholent to cook, he had no kavana, it's not Bishul Akum. And when the guy goes and flips over the electric switch and he doesn't realize that he's turning on the cholent, that's also fine. He didn't have kavanah to turn on the cholent. Memela, there's no issue of Bishul Akum. Now one should be careful. When one asks the guy to turn on the electric box and the cholent goes on, that is perfectly fine to do by the regular guy. I'm talking about when it's not Michael Ben Drusai if you're Sephardi, or if it didn't even start cooking if you're Ashkenazi. So telling the regular guy to turn on the electricity, that's fine. But if you run into one of those goyim, the guy who has the business card, Shabbos guy, or the guy, you go, du bist der Goy? And he says, ich bin a Shabbos guy. I'm a Shabbos guy. Mein Tata was a Shabbos guy. Mein Zeder was a Shabbos guy. I'm a Ural, ben Meyuchas, a Shabbos guy. And you ask him, could you turn on the electricity? He's like, Avada, I could turn on the electricity. What's Shabbos without cholent? Okay, for this guy we have a problem. Because this Haimish Shabbos guy, he knows good and well his kavanah. He says, what's Shabbos without cholent? And that's why he goes when he turns on the electricity. He says, Hin muchim azumin, l'kayim mitzvah Shabbos guy. Well, the heichen at the cholent. That's his kavanas, he knows that's why he was brought into this world, to turn on the electricity for the cholent. And that guy, that's taka a problem. That's going to be Bishul Akum. You have this sometimes, obviously I'm making a joke out of it, but you have this sometimes by, that Shabbos guy that you always go to, the one Filipino in the building. There's like 25, from Shomer Shabbos families, and there's the one Filipino aide that every Shabbos he's busy being a Shabbos guy, and he knows cholent. He knows the guy that he works for, the old man that he works for, and eats his cholent on Shabbos. Or sometimes you have this in the bungalow colony, which in Yiddish is called the country. Yeah, you have the bungalow colony, and you have the worker at the bungalow colony who he's in charge of taking care of the place. He knows what's going down. He knows that they need that cholent on Shabbos. In such cases, it could potentially be an issue of Bishul Akum. But once again, to be clear, for the Ashkenazim, as long as it's somewhat cooked, you're okay. And for the Sephardim, as long as it's Michael ben Drusai, you are okay. Okay. Now, let's get a little bit further. There are many products which the manufacturer, when they sell it, they do half the cooking, and the consumer is meant to finish it. When we were discussing Pasach, and we discussed par break bread, which is 80% made, and you're meant to flip it in the oven and finish it off. So when we discussed Pasach, we said for everybody, Ashkenaz and Sephardim, that's all good. But when it comes to Bishul Akum, that's not true. For the Sephardim, it's going to be a problem if the guy brought it to more than Michael ben Drusai. So for example, let's take 5-minute rice. How long does it take to make regular rice? I don't know, 20 minutes, a half an hour, something like that. But they sell something called 5 minutes rice. What's 5-minute rice? 5-minute rice is when they made it, 75% of the way or so, and then they took out all the water, and they sell it like that. So l'chayra, for Ashkenazim, it's perfectly fine. Ashkenazim are going to finish off the cooking, l'chayra. But for Sephardim, it already went to Michael ben Drusai, and l'chayra, Sephardim are not allowed to eat that. However, there is a saving grace for the Sephardim. There's a shita called the Avkas Rachel that says like this: if even after it went to Michael ben Drusai, but if it was taken to a matzav where it's no longer edible, therefore, and the Jew comes and completes the bishul to make it edible, then it will be okay to eat because the original guy's cooking is gone. It's no longer edible, and it needs further cooking. So therefore, if the guy did 75%, now they took out all the water, it's hard pieces now, so it's not edible. Therefore, without 5 minutes cooking, that will make it okay according to everybody. Now, there's one point which I'm making an assumption, and I'm just not clear. I didn't try it. For example, in these rice, what would be if you wouldn't be mavashal further, but you would mix warm water? Let's say you would mix it with warm water. Would it get geschmack finished away? Would it be completely cooked, and it just needs a longer time with warm water, and with hot water it gets ready in a shorter amount of time? Or is it with warm water it would never get finished? Why do I ask? If it needs hot water and it needs further cooking, okay, Beseder, this makes perfect sense. For Sephardim, it needs further cooking, and for Ashkenazim, it's not completely cooked, and therefore this is a finishing off of the cooking. But if warm water would do the job and the rice would be fully finished, because all it really needs is this water, it's really 100% done. It just needs water and to absorb, and with warm water it will absorb. So this is a little scary, because maybe it really is fully cooked. And maybe it's a problem even for the Ashkenazim. So I'm going to assume, I didn't try it, but I'm going to assume with warm water, that 5-minute rice will never get to completely geschmack. It'll be okay, but it will never get to completely geschmack. I don't know if that's true. If somebody wants to run a test, I'd be curious what the results are. Okay. I'm going to say something which I think is interesting. I don't know if I don't have the shoulders to say this type of thing, but as I said last week, that Rav Shlomo Zalman said maybe in Chutz La'aretz they have more problems of intermarriage because they're much more mekel and Bishul Akum. It's just a thought that I had. Maybe. I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but I'll say it anyways because that's what I get paid the big bucks for, right? So here's how we go. So I was just thinking, maybe we see the Sephardim are much more machmer in Bishul Akum and Pas Akum than the Ashkenazim. Once again, in general halakha, we don't usually see this, that the Sephardim are more machmer than the Ashkenazim. But when it comes to Bishul Akum and Pas Akum, it's a recurring theme that the Sephardim are more machmer than the Ashkenazim. Maybe this is the reason why the Sephardim have had less of an issue of intermarriage than the Ashkenazim. I believe that's true. I can't say for sure. But my understanding is that over the last bunch of Deiros, the Ashkenazim had much more problems of intermarriage than the Sephardim. Maybe it has something to do with this fact that the Sephardim are more machmer on Pas Akum and Bishul Akum, and the Ashkenazim are more mekel. Sarchin Gadol, I'm definitely not saying that as a strong statement, but I'm throwing it out there as a theory. Okay, what is the halacha by Rice Krispies? Now this is very interesting. What happens by Rice Krispies? They take rice, they cook the rice. Now, is cooked rice oila shulchan malachim? Yes. And then they take that cooked rice and they turn it into Rice Krispies. Now, is the Rice Krispies cereal oila shulchan malachim? No. So how do we view this? So one could argue that once it became this rice, once the rice became made rice, now at that point already, it is oila shulchan malachim. It's aser. The guy completely cooked the rice from beginning to end. That's Bishul Akum. That's aser. Then you take this aser dika rice and you make Rice Krispies. What's the halacha if you use shreifa rice and you make Rice Krispies? Obviously, it's aser. Dr. Rabelski Paskin, since it's one long process that they make the guy makes the raw rice into finished rice and then makes the finished rice into Rice Krispies, we don't freeze time in the middle of the process. We say the guy took raw rice and made Rice Krispies, and Rice Krispies aren't oila shulchan malachim, and the Mela Rice Krispies are allowed. L'maisa, I could hear it both ways. I'm not convinced one way or the other. I definitely hear Rabelski's svara that you could look at it one long process. I could hear why one would argue that to view it as one long process. I could hear why one would say freeze the clock. L'maisa, it's a geschmack caution. Okay, let's go weiter. So, what if you had a fully automated system? I imagine this is coming in the future, where you did nothing. The robots did the full Bishul. Well, is Bishul robot allowed? And the answer is yes. We have an Isser of Bishul Akum, not a Chiyav of Bishul Yisroel. And Memela, if it was Bishul robot, Memela, it would be allowed. Fine. So, let's go weiter. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says, let's talk about the types of cooking. So the Shulchan Aruch says that fish, which is salted by a guy, that's not a problem, even though he brought it from raw unedible to edible with the process of salting. That's not considered bishul. It's not bechlal the gezerah. It's not included in the gezerah. And the mela, a yid could eat the goyish herring. The Shulchan Aruch further says that smoking is allowed. Let's say the guy does the process of smoking the salmon, let's say, and that would be allowed. That wouldn't be a problem with Bishul Akum. Now, for sure, if the guy did something what they call cold smoke, they use cold smoke, that's for sure allowed. Now, it's unclear whether this din of the Shulchan Aruch was referring to cold smoke or was referring to even hot smoke. So the Isra Heter learns even by hot smoke, if it was done with the process of smoking, Bishul Akum does not apply, and it is allowed. Not everybody agrees to that. Now the Ramah goes and adds that kivush enik mevushal. If what somebody did is the guy pickled the whatever it was, the pickles, the fish, the whatever it is, that Bishul Akum does not apply. Pickling, even though by Shabbos we have a concept of kivush mevushal, when it comes to basar, kashrus, taruvus, we say kivush k'mavushal. When it comes to Bishul Akum, we don't say that, and kivush isn't enough. Now, because you need, I just want to quote the lashon of the Ramah, kivush enik k'mavushal, the lav asru elo bishul shel ish. We only asr bishul of ish. You need a fire dika cooking. But when it is kavush, when it's pickled, that isn't any fire. Mela, that is not considered to fit within Bishul Akum. Now, what about an induction stovetop? Now, for the unacquainted, the way that induction cooking works is there's no fire whatsoever. What you do is you take a metal pot that's magnetic, you stick it on this stovetop, and there's magnetic current going up and down. I'm going to pretend like I understand this. There's magnetic current coming up and down, zooming very fast, which creates lots of friction, and that friction creates heat, and that heat causes the stove, the pot, not actually the glass or whatever. The glass isn't what is getting hot. The pot itself is getting hot by the magnetic friction, and Mamela, that cooks. So it's using heat, but the heat is never generated by a fire. There's no fire whatsoever. And therefore, if you pick this pot up, the bottom, it might be hot from the pot, but it's not hot from itself. And that is what we call induction stovetop. And this is becoming more and more and more popular. So, is that included? I could have heard the argument that would not be Bishul Akum. Why? Because at least for the Ashkenazim, because the lashon of the Ramah was the loy asru elo Bishul shel eish, and over here there's no eish. So I could have heard the argument that this is not included, and this would not be considered Bishul Akum. The Maisa, and I heard an argument that somebody claimed that it isn't included. The Maisa, it seems that pretty much the poskim unanimously hold this is a problem of Bishul Akum. Why? Because it's a normal cooking. They understand this concept of the Ramah to be a little avdavka. When the Ramah says that we only answered Bishul Shel Eish, it means we only answered normal Bishul. If you're mevashel with the sun, dogma, or with kavish kamavushal, that doesn't count. But if you're doing normal cooking, that would be Bishul Akum. And cooking with an induction stovetop is surely normal cooking. And a side note that I would put out is you have to be very careful. Because the whole concept, and this is going to cause big problems in the future, I see it coming. There's a whole idea that everybody knows that once again the gezeres kasser, you turn on the fire and let the guy do the cooking. If you have an induction stovetop, that doesn't work. When you turn it on, nothing happens. The whole heat starts when you put the pot on the induction stovetop, on the stovetop. And if you pick up the pot, there's nothing there. Then when you put the pot back, it restarts. So you need to be the one to put it on, and you can't even have the guy pick it up for a second and put it down. Once again, you might have your heterim, if you're Ashkenazim, if you did part of the cooking, etc. This is going to be big problems. And I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to think, hey, I turned it on. Turning it on does nothing by induction stovetop. Don't fall for that mistake. Okay. How about a microwave? Now, in Svara, to me, it seems pretty obvious. I heard Rabbi Callis make this argument as well, that is not a normal bishul. That is not bishul shel eish. A, there's no fire when a microwave cooks. Secondly, that's not a normal way of cooking. Yes, we use a microwave all the time, but think about it. Almost everything we make in the microwave is reheating. There's a couple of exceptions. Yes, we make popcorn in the microwave, and maybe you make a potato. But the high majority of what you're doing with the microwave is reheating. So I would say that's not bishul shel eish, because there's no eish and it's not a normal way of cooking. However, l'maisa, the main poskim seem to aser. Rav Yashiv, Rav Shlomo Zalman, and Rav Vosner all say cooking in a microwave will be iser bishul akum. Now, to be clear, this is something that people get confused. If you're reheating in the microwave, that would not be bishul akum, even according to Rav Yashiv and Rav Vosner. The guy rewarms up food in the microwave. That's not bishul akum. Ain't bishul akum bishul. Everybody agrees to that. That's a mefershet din. There's no question. But the question is only if the guy made the popcorn, or if the guy, there's probably no bishul akum on popcorn. If the guy made the potato, Will that, or the guy made the egg in the microwave, would that be Bishul Akum? So according to Rav Yoshev, according to Rav Vosner, according to Rav Shem Zalman, that would be Bishul Akum. Rav Moshe Feinstein said, he said this in 1971, right when the microwave was starting, and he said this microwave thing is the future of cooking. This is how they're going to be doing all the cooking in the future. They're going to be cooking everything in this microwave. And since this is going to be the main way of cooking, Memela, we're going to have to consider Bishul Deraisa, and if you would cook like this on Shabbos, you'd be over Bishul Midaraisa, because this will be the way of cooking. Fast forward 50 years, and it seems that Rav Moshe's prediction, or this is actually how they were advertising it at the time, didn't materialize. And this didn't end up happening. Because nowadays, we don't really cook with a microwave. Yes, there are some exceptions, and the guy who makes the potato, etc. But the high majority of us are using microwaves for reheating, not for cooking. And this is certainly not the way of cooking. Because when the food's made in the microwave, it doesn't come out as good. And a lot of stuff you can't make in the microwave. So it's not the Metzias. It's not true. And Rav Kallis suggested that, or he didn't just suggest, he said it very strongly, that Rav Moshe Feinstein would say that there's no Bishul Akum by microwave today. The whole Pesach of Rav Moshe was based on that expectation that this is going to be the way of cooking. But guess what? It's not the way of cooking. And he counts Rav Moshe as being on the side that there is no Bishul Akum with the microwave. I definitely am with the point of saying we can't say that Rav Moshe Asers, that's for sure. I think it's a very bold point to say Rav Moshe is on the Matirim side. But I hear Rav Kal said it. L'maisa, Rav Heinemann was matter for this reason, that this is not considered Bishul with Eish. And also the Chalkas Binyamin was also matter for the same reason. Now this brings us to a complicated situation in halacha. What do I do when the big hitters of Poskim, Rav Yoshev, Rav Vosner, Rav Shlomo Zalman, all say that it's a problem? They all say that cooking with a microwave is Bishul Akum. And we have some Poskim, Rav Heinemann and the Chalkas Binyamin, and I'll throw a Kallis in there, who say that you're allowed to cook with the microwave. And in Svara, it seems pashid to me that this is not Iker cooking. And I don't even understand why the Rav Yosher, Rav Vosner, Shom Zalman Aser. I don't know what to do. I mean, I guess I have to be machmir for the big poskim, but I don't know. But then I was thinking further. There's another tzad, which it seems to me pashid. Remember we said last week that the Marsham says, nowadays, in the 1800s, nowadays, to cooked potatoes are oil shulchan malachim, but baked potatoes are not oil shulchan malachim. So you see, within one item, we could differentiate by different cooking processes. So I'm going to tell you something, for sure. Can't we say certainly that, yes, nowadays the cooked potatoes are oil shulchan malachim, and the baked potatoes are shulchan malachim. But a microwave potato? Give me a break! That's not oil shulchan malachim. There's no way. You can't tell me a microwave potato is oil shulchan malachim. You would never serve a chashuv guest a microwave potato. You wouldn't serve a chashuv guest anything from the microwave. Popcorn? You don't even serve popcorn you make from a nice fancy machine for a fancy guest. I guess if you only have a microwave, but that's not what you would serve somebody fancy. There's nothing. You're going to microwave an egg for a chashuv guest? You got to be kidding me. No way. So even if you want to tell me that it's considered eish, you have to admit, microwave food is not oil al shulchan malachim. And we already see from the Marsham, we can differentiate between different methods of cooking. And Memela, I think it's pashid, shabbat pashid, that there shouldn't be Bishul Akum with the microwave. So I'm going to say, even if I accept Rav Yoshev and Rav Vosner and Rav Shlomo Zalman that it's considered eish, I'm not accepting that it's oil al shulchan malachim. I think that's pashut the metzias. I'm not positive whether Rav Vosner, Rav Yashiv, and Rishon Zalman dealt with that point. I know they dealt with the fact that they consider it Eish. I don't know if they dealt with Oil HaShulchan Melachim, but to me it seems pashut. It's not Oil HaShulchan Melachim. It's Megillah, and it's very negeya. You have the old man who needs the food heated by the aide, and l'chayra you could have the aide heat the food, or you could have the cleaning lady heat up the food for the kids in the microwave. L'chayra, that is fine. L'chayra, that would be allowed. And thank you for listening, and have an amazing week.